welcome back to a special episode of the Hubscale podcast. This is the first live episode that we've done so far, and we've got a very special guest today, Tom Dickinson. He was actually our 6th episode that we did a long time ago, well, more about a year ago right now, but Tom, it is great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, mate. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I know for the podcast who haven't seen the previous podcast, tell us more about yourself.
So I started Tom's Talks, which is my motivational public speaking business, back in 2019. And the story behind that is I very sadly lost my brother to suicide in 2015. Following that, I had a real struggle with depression and suicidal thoughts. Luckily, I came through the other side. I fought against the demons, and fast forward to where I am now, I'm in a really good place. Feeling the best I've ever felt, doing the best I've ever done. And the motivation behind the talk is to the audience is to say, I was there and now I'm here, so if I can do it, then anyone can. And on top of that, I also have a family business that supplies office and educational furniture. My dad started that back in 1993. We finally got him to retire at the end of 2021. So took over that with my brother and sister, so I've been running that ever since, and then more recently started a one-to-one mindset life coaching business back in July, really to try and bridge the gap that was missing. I had a lot of people messaging me saying I'm in a bad place, I'm struggling, I need some advice. There was only so much advice I could give. I thought I need to find something where I could really offer value. So the one-to-one coaching stemmed from that, which is TT Collective.
No, it's amazing. It's an amazing journey because obviously you and I have been friends for a very, very long time. But I always want to start this podcast with something that is quite close to us and the journey that you went on. So take me back to 2015.
So 2015 was probably the worst year of my life, to be honest. Prior to that, my brother, I always say that we as a family were very lucky growing up. Mm-hmm. My dad started the business and from starting the business did really, really well. I wasn't even born yet, so I was brought into a world where we had a lot more than other kids, very, very lucky, very, very good upbringing. And outside looking in, you would never think that anybody within our family could ever have a problem or have anything to worry about, struggle with mental health or anything like that. But unfortunately, Liam was the anomaly. He was the kind of guy, and I always say this, you put him on a desert island with no drugs, no booze, no crime, no violence, it would find drugs, booze, crime, and violence. We loved him to bits, but he was a nightmare. And, unfortunately, he just made the wrong decisions, hanged around with the wrong people, and unfortunately had a really horrific accident. This caused him a lot of trauma. A lot of insecurity, and I think this is where this depression that he had really stemmed from. And to cut a very long story short, one evening I came home and we'd had an argument about his addiction. Unfortunately, from his accident, he struggled with a ketamine addiction. We had an argument about his addiction, and I found him 10 minutes later and he'd hung himself. He'd taken his own life. So from that, despite what I saw and despite what I'd been through, I chose to just completely ignore the fact that it happened. I said to myself, I've seen what I've seen, I've been through what I've been through, but looking at my mum and the rest of my family, they need me to be strong. And that's what I did, and that was the worst thing I could have done.
Yeah, but that it's so crazy, isn't it? Because you had the stigma to be the man of the house, the person, and things on those lines. But the next journey, I think this is the most important part, right? Because you was kind of squashing your feelings and everything in a corner somewhere, not really addressing them. So take me through the next phase and what happened to you as well.
So from Liam passing away in October 2015, I just, like I said, chose to ignore that it happened. Obviously, I did grieve and I did go through that process, but not as much as I should have done. It was actually 2 years later, so it was coming up to I was 19 when Liam passed away, and it was coming up to around my 21st birthday, the 2nd anniversary of his passing, and the fact that I chose to ignore it, it all came back and bit me in the ass significantly. I was then in a really, really bad place, and depressed and suicidal, but luckily for me, I had an amazing support network around me, my dad, my mum, my family, my sister, my brother, my friends at the time. And especially my dad constantly asking me, what's wrong? Are you okay? You don't seem yourself. And initially me just saying, Dad, I'm fine, leave me alone, I'll be all right. Constantly just brushing it off, as you know, a lot of people unfortunately do with their mental health. And there was one evening in particular where I'd been at the Bridge pub, I'd been many times, and I was with, you know, a group of friends, and I just got absolutely battered, smashed. And I think at that point I was just drinking to escape the reality that I was in. And that evening I walked home, and the whole way home I was just thinking, if I kill myself tonight, will this pain go away? And the only reason I didn't was because, you know, I always find it really strange saying it out loud because it feels bizarre, but I had a voice in my head that said, if you would take your own life, then your family's going to have to go through everything again like they did with Liam. And there is a saying that when you take your own life, the pain doesn't go away, it just gets passed on to your loved ones. From that day, you know, I was still obviously struggling. I was in a really bad place. But again, my dad, what's wrong? You don't seem yourself. Are you okay? Eventually, I just broke down to him. I was at an event for the business, and I just broke down, and I just said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I feel like this, but I just feel so down, and I can't put my finger on why. And he said, right, this means absolutely nothing, this event. Get in the car, we're going home. And we went up to Liam's memorial bench, and we sat there and just talked, and I just cried, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried. And I just got everything off my chest. And from that point, not straight away obviously, but eventually I just got back to being how I needed to be, and I got back to being Tom.
Yeah. So tell me, then I think again, what you went through in that scenario and then where you are right now, like fast forward that 7-year period, is a completely different person, and the way you, the trajectory that you've gone on over the past few years is just absolutely phenomenal. So tell me, I really want to dive into the mental health piece of what you do, not just the talks, but also the coaching piece of it as well. So yeah, take me back to the first talk, and why did you even start this in the first place? So
yeah, it's an interesting one. So going back to the business that my dad set up, the furniture business, more specifically for schools, I had a customer, and we was kitting out the sixth form, so I ended up speaking to the head of sixth form. She was choosing all the furniture. We ended up getting on really well. This was in 2018, and I just said to her, you know, unfortunately I lost my brother to suicide. I had my own struggle. I really want to do something to give back. I don't know what it is, I don't know where I'm going with this, but that's what I want to do. And really sadly, actually, this was in the June of that year, and it was over the 6-week holidays. We delivered the furniture that she'd ordered, but also really sadly, 2 of their kids had taken their own life in that 6-week period. Yeah, so she rang me in the September and said, "This has happened. It's awful. You know, as a school, we're absolutely devastated. I think what we need to do is get you in front of the kids." I said, "Right, okay, what do you want me to say?" She went, "Just tell them what you've been through. Tell them about your story, tell them, you know, about your brother, tell them how you've got to where you are today," and I think that will resonate with them so well. You're a young lad at this time. I was only 23, 24, and I did. So we sat down and sort of broke down what it is I talk about now, put it on a PowerPoint presentation, and then January 2019, stood up and spoke in front of these sixth formers at the school, and basically just talked them through my journey and how I got to where I am today. And I can hand on heart say it was the best feeling I've ever had. It was unbelievable. Yeah, no, I can imagine that feeling, especially the first one, and actually giving back after the stuff that you've been through as well. But then you go on a bit of a journey with it, don't you? You start doing it in multiple schools, you're going around the country travelling and speaking to people, and then you start the coaching business that kind of ties into the same scenario. So just talk us through that piece as well. Yeah, so it was actually, I will be honest with you, it was a book that you made me read that gave me the idea. Alex Hormozy, $100 million offers. He told me to read it, so I read it, and it just gave me this idea of, I can make this offer so amazing that people can't refuse. And that was what initially gave me the idea of this mindset life coaching business. And it really stemmed from, I looked at myself, and I thought, you know, I'm now 27 years old. I'm the managing director of a business that's turning over £4 million a year. I'm speaking in multiple schools and businesses. You know, I'm living my best life, and I'm in the best place I've ever been. How have I got there? What do I do every day? You know, what are my routines? What are my habits? And also, on the other side of it, I had an online coach at the time, and I looked at their business model, and I sort of said to myself, I can apply that business model to mindset and mental health in the same way, but rather than monitoring your scale weight, I'm monitoring your mindset and how that improves, and breaking that down every day. So we sat down, I sat down with a friend of mine, Ben Hawksworth, who's got a coach consultant business. He helps online fitness business scale. I said, I've got this idea, this is what I want to do. You know, respect what you do. You've done an amazing job over the last few years. I want you to help me get there. So him and his team helped me create what is now TT Collective. So yeah, started that, launched it in July, and got up to quite a few clients in a short period of time, so it's going really well.
Yeah, including myself as well, including you. Yeah, exactly. I do want to talk about that a lot, because in business, obviously trying an aspiring entrepreneur, anyone in the business industry, I think sometimes get caught up in a lot of the stigma of you're working so many hours, you don't really have time for yourself, you have to put everything within the business and not yourself. That's whatever the business situation is. But I think the most important thing that I've realised over the past year or so I started Hubscale a year and a half ago. I've been through little ups and downs. Entrepreneurs, anybody who speaks to anybody, it is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and it's about the resilience that you go through a day. For example, you start the day at 9 a.m. and it's the best thing in the world, you absolutely love your job. By 11, you hate it, you want to quit, and there's something that's gone wrong completely out of your control that dips your scenario. So you and I had a conversation back earlier this year and early last year about what I was doing in my life. From, yes, I was working 12-hour days, but I wasn't going to the gym properly. I didn't have my habits in order. Wasn't reading anymore, wasn't focusing on self-development. I was in certain relationships and things that weren't necessarily performing or best for me as a person or the business itself. So I know this is quite weird because it's the scenario that we went through, but talk me through that piece as well, and how did you help me get out of that area?
So obviously, I was very surprised, first and foremost, when you said to me, I want you to coach me, because I was like, no, you don't. Like, outside looking in, you're absolutely flying, you were killing it, and I just said, Elliot, you don't need me, mate. And you said, I do. I want to have a conversation with you. I want to tell you about the current situation. So we did. We spoke about it, and we looked at what you were doing day to day. And you know, like you've just said, you weren't looking after the foundations of your own being, of your own day. You know, you weren't looking after your health. And without your health, you are absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. And without your habits, you're nothing, or without your good habits. And I always say to the clients that I am hopefully going to work with, and I am working with, the main focus of this is building good habits, because you fall to the depth of your habits. So if you have very good habits, you will fall there. If you don't have very good habits, you fall there. We all go through difficult times and we all have very difficult days, but if you have good habits and good routines in place, you only fall there instead of there, and you pick yourself back up. You have the energy and the resilience to overcome that much easier than you would if you didn't. Yep. And that's the whole point of the coaching. So we said, obviously, looked at what you were doing day to day. You weren't looking after nutrition, you weren't looking after your exercise, you had some external problems that were causing you stress and frustration, and you know, we quickly broke them down and sorted them out, and within quite a short period of time, you made massive improvements. And I think there's this toxic sort of thought about being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, that you've got to run yourself into the ground to make it successful, and it's so not true. You know, single-handedly, the most important thing that you should prioritize in your day is sleep. You know, you got exercise, which is brilliant. You've got nutrition, which is brilliant. But if you are sleeping terribly every single night, you're not going to last very long. And again, when I break down the habits of the people that I'm speaking with, every single one, you know, one might be struggling with exercise, one might be struggling with nutrition, but nearly every single one of them are struggling with sleep. And that's the most important thing to get right. If you get your sleep right, you know, you can have 50% nutrition and 50% exercise, but if you only got 50% sleep, then you're going to be in a difficult place.
I still struggle with sleep a lot. How do you get it better?
So first and foremost, what is your nighttime routine? What's your hygiene when it comes to sleep? So do you go on your phone for within the last hour before you go to sleep? That by far is the worst thing that you can do. So your phone, your laptop permits something called a blue light. this stimulates the production of a hormone or a neurotransmitter, whichever one you want to go down. And this is cortisol, which makes us alert and makes us focused. Some people refer to it as the stress hormone. It's something that your body very much needs, but it needs it early on in the day when you are starting out in your day-to-day activities and whatever else. But it's the last thing you need before bed. If you're going to bed alert and focused, how the hell are you going to get to sleep? You may fall asleep, but then your quality of sleep's out of whack. So again, a habit that I implement with all my clients is just to put your phone away for the last hour of the day. You know, don't go on social media, don't go on your phone, unwind, you know, listen to a podcast, read a book, and you will sleep far much better.
No, it's a good thing. I think for me though, I think you always put excuses in your own mind, right? And I think some of the problems, I mean, I've slacked off with a coach a little bit recently, let's be honest, but I think in terms of the scenario, it's like, yes, if I do fall off the habits and maybe I'd go a little bit down in terms of the routine that I do have, having that kind of baseline of, right, I need to get back to here because this is where I was performing on the most optimal level. This is now my baseline. So if anything does go wrong or I have a terrible week or whatever happens, the next week I know exactly how to switch it back into exactly the scenario that I need to be in. So I thought it was really powerful and it's helped me significantly over the past few months. So number one, appreciate that, which is good stuff. But I guess one thing that we talked about is resilience. If you look at the journey that, I mean, even I've been on, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing CEOs and founders all over the world about their entrepreneurial journey, which is super tough, a lot of it. You've got to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And like I said earlier, the days change by the hour, not by the week or the day. It changes by the hour. So people going through that, I know a lot of your clients are actually business owners and they're entrepreneurs and things on those lines as well. So tell me about the resilience piece and how important is that and how does that tie into your habits as well?
So it's about, you know, seeing failure as an opportunity to learn and grow rather than seeing it as something that's final. You know, many entrepreneurs will tell you that they have failed time and time again. You know, if you look at the most well-known entrepreneurs in day-to-day, you know, you've got J.K. Rowling that got rejected however many times before Harry Potter was published and then turned into what it is today. You've got Michael Jordan, his famous quote says that he missed the game-winning shot 1,000 times. You know, he missed shot after shot after shot and he failed time and time again, but that's why he succeeds. And I think it's just a very important message for entrepreneurs and business owners, but people in day-to-day life that, you know, you need to get rid of that limitation of being afraid of failing. And once you get rid of that and you go for things and you don't shy away from embracing the challenges, you know, your life changes in an unprofound way. But while you do that, it's also very, very important that you have everything else in place first. Because if you do fail, it is a very difficult mental battle to have with yourself to say, oh, I got the energy to do this again. If you put everything in place, you look after your health, you look after nutrition, your sleep, you know, practicing gratitude, all those habits are going to give you that mental clarity, that focus, that precision and energy to overcome that mental battle with yourself to think, let's do it, come on, we can go again. What have I learned from this failure that I can now apply to move and go again?
Yeah, and I do like that a lot, is because when you think about the foundations of somebody's life, like when I moved to Dubai from the UK, while setting up a brand new business with nobody out there who I knew, the foundations were already off. I was moving around constantly in different locations. I didn't have anything in routine. And I always look back at that. I'm kind of grateful for going through that, because now I know what not to do if I ever move anywhere or anything on those lines. But it's all about having them principles and the foundations in place. Because I was looking at something and reading something the other day that if you have it's like trying to build a business is like building on sand, and you have to build the foundation first. And the foundation as an early stage entrepreneur starts with you, 100%. And that's all it is. If you're not there going out there driving a business or doing anything, the business will just fail as well. So them foundation piece, and this is why I can't thank you enough for the things that you've done for me over the past years, mate, because we've now set the foundations that no matter when, if anything goes wrong, we go back to square one and go, right, here we are, this is what we do to get back to the position again. So I think that's super, super powerful. But take me through the business journey as well. Like, I know you, a lot of the listeners to this podcast in particular will be entrepreneurs, they'll be business owners, they'll be salespeople, they'll be technical people from all around the world. 60% of our audience is in the US. And I know some of your clients are from the US as well. So what would you say to people who are kind of in the work right now, maybe struggling or not having the routines in place? Like, what advice would you give to people like that?
Let's jump on a call and you can become one of my clients. No, I would say I think you need to be very transparent with yourself and be honest and look at what are you doing day to day. I did this recently with a client. He was struggling a little bit financially, and I said, have you looked in detail at what's coming in and what's going out, and looking at those little hidden costs coming out of your bank account? He said, no. I said, well, how the hell do you know how you're going to get yourself out of this situation? And I said, as a coach, as a mentor, you know, this is what I'm here for. Let's look at these things in detail and break it down, and then you've got a day by day, week by week plan of exactly what you're going to do to get yourself out of this situation. And we did that, and you know, straight away I was like, fucking hell, I can see a way out. Yeah. I couldn't see that way out before. And that's the whole thing with, you know, your own personal journey. It's about just being fully transparent with yourself. You can bullshit everybody else, but if you bullshit yourself, then you're going absolutely nowhere. And it just, you know, it comes down to self-awareness. Having self-awareness of what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, why you're not doing it well, where can you make those improvements, and then take action.
Yeah, I think it's really important as well. And I think one thing we've not really touched on is, in too much detail, is the fitness aspect. Yeah. You and I love the gym, do X, Y, and Z all the time, and it's part of our daily routine. It has been since very young, so I think we're quite fortunate there to have that aspect of, right, we need to go to the gym to feel better, and it's a little bit of a mind space to get away and get away from work or whatever's going on. Yeah. But how important is fitness?
Yeah, very, very important, 100%. You know, for me, I make sure that it's the very first thing that I do. You know, very busy schedule. If I don't train first thing in the morning, then I end up not training. But that's not why I train first thing in the morning. It's because I always like to do the little wins or the hardest things in the day at the very beginning of the day. So just an example, you know, getting up any time between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, jump in a cold shower, first thing in the day, especially now it's freezing cold. Nobody wants to do that. And that's why I do it, because it's the hardest thing to do at the very beginning of the day. Obviously, there's a lot of studies to show that you get a release of dopamine, which makes us feel good. But for me, it's that little win first thing of the day. Right, I've done that. What am I doing now? Right, I'm going to the gym. I'm going to lift out weights for an hour, do some cardio. Again, it's that other little win that you've done it first thing in the morning. You don't see many people train at that time of the day because it's hard and it requires effort. But also, again, when we exercise, you know, it's been shown in a lot of different studies that it releases this other hormone, a neurotransmitter called endorphins, which again improves our mood, reduces stress and anxiety. So if you can start the day with being full of dopamine and endorphins, then you will fly through that day. And obviously with exercise, whether it's weight training, playing football, running, swimming, whatever, you know, you are putting yourself in a much physical, better standpoint, so you have more energy. You look after that longevity in your life as well.
I think it's so important, right? Because I just lifted weights for a very long time, right? But I've started doing cardio more, and I feel fitter. I feel like my mental capability is 10 times better. And the reason why I think it's so important as well, because when you're making decisions and you're not necessarily, you're eating terrible food, you're not going to the gym, you're not very fit as a person in general, I genuinely believe that your brain is not going to make the right decisions. No. And take me back to when things was going a little bit tits up a few years ago, or a couple of years back, sorry, when the business was starting. I was out of shape. I was not necessarily out of shape. I weren't eating right. I wasn't going to the gym properly. And my decisions that I made them too slow. I should have made certain decisions in my life way earlier than I did. And because of my routine and the exercise and the fitness and the health and the well-being was all out of whack. I'm not necessarily blaming on that. It might just be my judgment.
Yeah, but it didn't help though, did it?
It certainly didn't help making them decisions. Moving forward, business, Tom Dickinson, all the businesses that you've got, where do you want to get to?
Well, going to OSI, so OSI, despite how well Tom's Talks and TT Collective is doing, that is still where my main focus is at the minute. Obviously, running that business, we have 20 staff. We currently just turned over 4.3 the last financial year. I'd love to get to 10 million. I'd love to really scale that business and see where we can take that, because our business model is unique. There's not many other companies like us, and what we offer as a business is absolutely fantastic. You know, the service that we offer is unmatched against anybody else. So if we can replicate that, we're currently in Barnsley, covering Yorkshire. We're just expanding into Manchester. We've just hired a BDM, business development manager for the Midlands. So I'd love to see where we can get that. You know, if we can hit 10 million, I'd be over the moon with that. And then Tom's Talks is just, you know, trying to tell my story to as many people as I can, just continue to raise awareness around mental health. TT Collective, again, I'm saying all this and I'm thinking, where the hell am I going to have the time? But TT Collective, I've just got up to 20 clients with that, which I'm very happy with in the period of time I've been doing it. I'd like to say if I can get to 100 clients by the end of next year, then I'll be very happy with that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It really is. I always leave with one question on the podcast. I don't know if you answered this last time, but if you could go back to the beginning, before any of this happened, especially with the scenario that happened, what would you tell yourself?
Don't give up, just keep going, and don't be afraid. Firstly, don't care what anybody else thinks. I think when I was a little bit younger, like now, unless you're in my circle, unless you're my best friend or my partner or my family, I couldn't care less what you think of me. I did when I was younger, you know, and I think if I'd have maybe got rid of that sooner, I would have excelled quicker. Mm-hmm. But I also do believe that everything happens for a reason, and you know, things happened at the right time when they were meant to happen, and it's all led me to where I am now. One thing I would say is, for me, I wish I'd have started self-development sooner. I think I started at a good time at a very early age, but I would say to anybody that's an aspiring entrepreneur and business owner, you know, again, you fall to the level of your self-development. If you're not continually learning and continually upskilling yourself and expanding your knowledge, then you will fall short at some point. So, yeah. Yeah,
I think one thing is super important as well with your story, and we've talked about this so many times. I love everything you said there, but with what happened with Liam and things on those lines, the amount of people that you have helped is absolutely phenomenal. We go out on, we might go for some drinks or anything, you get people coming up to you and saying you've actually saved their life. And that's happened numerous times. So the amount of feedback you get from the comments that you get on all your socials and the people messaging out to you from watching your content on there as well.
I will say though, you know, I would not be where I am today, and this is not just you, but you know, Brad, Lloyd, Amy, my family. You know, you can have all the aspirations in the world, you can have all the ambition, and you can be looking after yourself, but if you don't have the right people around you, you're going nowhere. And I'm very lucky that I've got you as a best friend, so thank you.
Well, no, Tom, appreciate it, and thank you very much for that. But thank you for coming on the show again. You're the only person who's been a repeat guest, so you must be very special. But no, honestly, everybody tune in. I'll put everyone's Tom's links down at the bottom as well for Tom's Talks, T Collective, and things on those lines. So go check him out, watch his content, it's brilliant, and you will not regret it.